This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello, and welcome to the Friday Twilight Show. I'm Claire Cannon. Thank you for joining me, whether you are here live or listening to the podcast. With budget cuts and the cost of living issues that many families are facing, what can we do as staff to make shared positive memories this Christmas? I'm thinking about Christmas presents, CE, not presents, TS.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, and thank you again for joining me here on this show. It is the first Friday in December, which, well, if you're listening live, it is. For me, that's actually quite early to think about Christmas. I'm not one for putting up my decorations really early. I do appreciate they look very nice, but I prefer to wait a little bit longer. However, it's obviously something that is very much on people's minds. Um, One of the things that I have been seeing a lot of over the last few weeks, and maybe I didn't notice it in previous years, I don't know, possibly not, or maybe it's just become more of a discussion point this year. But there are lots of questions where people are asking, what shall I buy my class? Various suggestions, people, there are all sorts of websites where you can get things very cheaply, often from China. Um, and, I'm not sure about the quality of some of these things. That's probably a whole separate thing about the kind of ethics behind those companies. But it's just really interesting to see that question, what shall I buy my class, has become such a talking point. Now, I would say, not by all means, not everybody, but it does tend to be people who say they are working in a primary setting rather than secondary. But for me, I'm just sort of starting to wonder, where it's come from. Why have we got to this point where, is it something that people assume they have to do? Is it something that's become the done thing, and that's therefore what it's just almost become sort of accepted practice? But I mean, on a personal level, I don't remember my teachers ever buying me anything. I certainly wouldn't have expected it. So again, I mean, that's going back quite a long time now. However, there's, wonder what's changed in those kind of intervening years. I do remember making things like a little handmade card to take in for my teacher. There was never any kind of expectation or assumption that I would get something in return. So yeah, just asking that question really, where's it come from? But more to the point, is it really necessary? There's several reasons I think that I'm going to explore during this show. There's several reasons in terms of my thought process around whether it is necessary. If you are listening live and you do buy your class a gift, I'd be really interested to hear your reasons for doing so. Whether you think it's something that you have to do, whether it's something you've chosen to do, or whether it's something you'd rather not do, and you're perhaps looking for an alternative. If that is you, if you have some thoughts on what I'm saying this evening, please do text in because it's lovely to hear from the listeners. As I say, equally, if you disagree with me, one way or the other, I'm always happy to hear your points of view and explore those a little bit more. Um, if you were listening in the introduction, I was saying, looking today at Christmas presents, spelt ENCE at the end, compared to Christmas presents as in things that are wrapped in paper and ends TS. Really want to start thinking about how we can make positive memories and whether that actually needs to involve token gifts. As I say, for me, buying your class a gift each isn't something that I think is particularly necessary. Am I a Scrooge? That did actually occur to me when I was thinking about the content for this show. Am I just being a Scrooge? Am I being miserable? I don't think so. And I know that is my own opinion. Um, but for me, what is far more important, really, really important, is taking time to build those shared positive memories, to give our children, the people that we, particularly in a primary school that you see pretty much all day, every day, to give them a positive experience, a joyful experience, and something that I think they're more likely to remember. And I think, how important that is and how powerful that could potentially be when we know there are so many families that are struggling. They may be struggling financially. And on that note, is your school saying to parents they don't need to buy their teachers gifts? But, families are struggling financially. They're also more likely to be struggling with mental health than they were in the past. Those, those on their own are tricky things for some families. They will have multiple issues going on. And Christmas could be a real struggle. It could be a time of challenge. It could be a tough time in terms of family dynamics. And we can all think, I'm sure, of students who actually are not that keen on having 2 weeks off, whether it's for Christmas, Easter, or any other time. They actually prefer the safety and security of school. And a lot of the time, that is down to the routine and the relationships that they have with the people that they come into contact when they are at school. So, um, I am coming at that from the point of view of, working with children with SEN for a big chunk of my career, and most recently working in an SEMH provision. And I really do see the damage that can be done when young people don't have those positive experiences, when they don't get to experience what it's like to have a connection with an adult that they can trust, with an adult that is going to be there for them. And it just really highlights to me the importance of actually giving students the opportunity to experience those things. And I think, our students are human beings. If we think of us as human beings, we would much rather, most of us anyway, much rather have a positive experience, day out, time with someone that we, enjoy their company. We would much rather that than being given a gift, and particularly a gift that is quite likely to be low value, may well not be great in terms of quality, and to be honest, will likely be soon forgotten about, and quite likely not something they wanted either. So I just think, what is it that we're really, why are we buying students gifts? Let's go back to that question. Why are we buying students gifts? It's certainly not in our job description. It's certainly not something that should be expected of teachers. And I think that we can be doing far more to support our students and give them something. And I don't mean give them a physical thing, but give them something positive at Christmas time that isn't something that you have bought, mass produced online. As I say, there's quite a lot more to sort of my thinking around this. It started off as a sort of quick question that popped into my head, but it's something that I just started sort of percolating on really and have been thinking about quite a lot more. And as I say, seeing some of the comments and responses that have been going on social media. So, after a break to hear from our sponsors, I'm going to take some time to break down and unpick some of my reasons, some of my thoughts in a little bit more detail.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading!
Parentkind are a national charity representing parent views and voice and championing parental participation in education and school life. By fostering strong school-parent partnerships, we can boost student attendance, improve behaviour and enhance academic performance. When parents actively participate, students thrive. Join the movement that's reshaping education for the better. Visit parentkind.org to learn more about reaping the rewards of working in partnership with parents.
Are you ready to enhance your assessments in a world where AI is transforming education? Join Toddle for an exclusive event, Designing Assessments with AI, a live session tailored just for UK educators. Explore practical strategies to keep your assessments both effective and fair as AI continues to reshape education. Hear from experts Darren Coxon and Dale Bassett, who'll guide you through designing authentic assessments and navigating AI's biggest challenges. It's happening on December the 2nd from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Don't miss out on this opportunity to discover how you can adapt your assessment strategies for the future of education. Register for free at toddleapp.com/UKAI and secure your spot now.
Hey educators, ready to kickstart 2025 with world-class inspiration? Then don't miss Bet UK, happening January 22nd to 24th in London. Get fired up in our high-energy arena hosted by Laura McInerney with an incredible lineup. Hear from racing driver and inclusion advocate Nicholas Hamilton and the poetic power duo Michael Rosen and Christian Foley. Plus, don't miss the legendary Stephen Fry discuss the human approach to AI. Explore hundreds of hours of unmissable content, the latest edtech, and free CPD opportunities to supercharge your skills. All for free, so why wait? Head to betshow.com and book your ticket now. Let's make 2025 your best year yet.
Thank you there to our sponsors for supporting us here at Teachers Talk Radio. Spending this evening talking about the idea of presents at Christmas. And that is presents spelled ENCE, not presents that ends TS. So, how can we, as educators, shift this focus from buying our class token gifts to actually thinking about spending quality time with them and why that is really important? And I shared a few of my thoughts before the break. What I want to do now is spend some time really kind of unpicking what my thoughts are, some of the things that I've noticed where people have challenged online when these comments have been coming up. And if you are listening live, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So, my first point is around this focus on building relationships. Now, if you've listened to any of my other shows, you will have heard me talking about the power of relationships. It is something that I feel has got, it gives a huge benefit, and it's something that can really make a difference, not just actually to our young people, but to the staff as well, and to our parents that are all part of our school communities. Anyway, thinking about this idea of time and presence over Christmas. So instead of having quite a transactional approach where we are giving gifts, which to me is kind of encouraging quite a materialistic approach to Christmas. How about we emphasize the importance of meaningful teacher student connections? How about we look at opportunities to cultivate peer to peer connections as well? That's got so many positives that will then come as an offshoot of that. Um, there are also so many things that you can do to help facilitate these connections. Get involved yourself as a teacher. Um, has all sorts of things. I started thinking about what kind of activities might you do, and again, being mindful. I said earlier on about budget cuts. Trying to think of activities that are not going to cost the school money. And I say school because I do not agree with teachers going out and spending their own money. So, what can you do? Shared storytelling. Have you sat round in a circle with your class and, what if everybody says a sentence? I mean, it's going to be a crazy, wacky story, but it can be a lot of fun. gives people a chance to contribute. If students don't want to, they don't have to. Sure, lots of you do circle times in other scenarios, situations, and I don't know, you might pass a beanbag round, or you have some kind of thing, an object that they use when they're speaking. It's because they've got that object. They pass it on. If that next person doesn't want to speak, they pass it on again. Um, so lots of little ways that you can get people involved, perhaps in a smaller group, if some students didn't want to be in the big group. There are some really lovely things you can do art and craft wise. I know some of you might be completely tinsel and glittered out, so it doesn't have to involve those things. But could you, I don't know, decorate part of your wall in your classroom? Doesn't have to be shiny, sparkly, doesn't have to have lights on it. It could be something that the students have each made, and you change your classroom display, and there you go, you've got a nice little display done. Could be for when you come back or for the rest of term before you change it to something for a new topic in January, for example. Um, Perhaps you've got some students who might like to debate an idea. That's an interesting one. Um, could you give them things like true or false statements, and I don't know, look at all sorts of things? Why do we have Christmas? Is it a good idea to have Christmas trees? If you want to keep that kind of world matters, citizens of the world perspective perhaps going on, is it ethical to, I don't know, have trees that we buy every year? They've been cut down from the forest where they were growing, and we have them in our house or in our garden for a few short weeks, and then that's it. A lot of them, the councils have to come round and clear them up. So lots of different things, and it will depend on the age of your students, will depend what they're interested in. um, but there's lots of things you can do that can get them involved in a shared experience, and things that don't cost a lot of money, don't take a lot of time. They can if you want them to, but will allow all sorts of levels of participation that suit the different students. And the thing about these kind of moments is it takes away some of that academic pressure. So it's a chance to build some trust. It's a chance for students to take part in a way that perhaps they feel more emotionally secure. So some of the students who may not ordinarily contribute may find that actually the Christmas activity, something where it's not necessarily about being right and wrong, it's a bit of fun. There's not that, you know, constant, I need to get this right. Maybe that will give them a chance to shine, and they will then feel seen, they will feel heard and valued beyond whatever they contribute on an academic level. And I did actually find some research. So Rebecca Halliwell, in the University of Manchester in 2024, so earlier this year, carried out a thematic review of literature, and this was around the power and strength of teacher-student relationships. And what she found was that by creating these opportunities for shared connection, for building relationships in a way that's not just the sort of traditional, I'm the educator, stand here and teach you content, but actually on a more human level, what that can do is really build a sense of community. Particularly and interestingly, it was particularly for those with SEMH needs. And they are quite often the students who people describe as attention seeking or loud or disruptive. Actually, a lot of the time, what they are looking for is connection. So, if you are listening live, I can see we do have a few people this evening, which is lovely. Do let me know your thoughts on whether or not we should buy our students Christmas presents as teachers, or whether we should actually be spending quality time with them. And just before I move on to another point, linked to what Rebecca Halliwell had said in her thematic review, is that actually if you build connections with people, they want to be there. They want to be in your room, and they want to do the right thing by you and for you. And we know that there's been a huge rise in suspensions and exclusions. And whilst it's not, a magic wand, I wish there was one, But positive experiences and relationships can really go a long way to reducing the risk of those things happening. So, again, another very good reason, I think, for spending some time with your students. Um, Another point that I touched on earlier on was the power of shared memories. So, it does link in to building those positive relationships because once you've got a relationship, once you start building that, you can create memories, experiences, you can do things together that will stay with that young person. And I just ask you, if you're listening to this, to reflect back on a teacher that you remember from your school days, and there will be something that they have done for you, said to you, with and it is with you that's meant you've remembered them. That's meant that they mean something to you far more than perhaps most or all of the other teachers that you will have come into contact with when you're a student. So, what can we do to build shared memories? Well, it's similar to the relationships, but can we do something together as a class? Again, low to no cost. What about? I know people don't like class movie days, but that's because what happens is it gets put on instead of a lesson. But rather than it being a kind of snap decision or a, oh, well, let's keep them occupied for a bit, why not actually change your classroom a little bit? You might need to prepare some of the students who will need to process the change. Can you set it out a bit like a cinema? Move the tables, set the chairs up in a different way. You may or may not want to have something like popcorn or snacks. Um, Another quite fun thing, again, just being mindful of your class, what they need, what will work for them. There are so many, sites out there now, free ones that you can do something like a Christmas sing along. You can do Odd One Out, you can do I Spy. And again, great things to do either in teams or individually. But it's something that will get them talking and it's something that they're more likely to remember than that little gift that you bought them off some random internet site. Um, what else? I think, there's also that idea of social bonds with their peers. If they are working together, again, something that's not necessarily academic, so there's not that same pressure, but it will give them the chance to connect with people in a very different way. And you might find that some of the students have got talents that you never knew they had. Um, Again, another study that I was looking at in relation to this was in Psychology Today, again, 2024, so very recent. And they shared that the impact of taking time to remember and reflect on positive experiences at a later date can really boost well-being. And actually, if you think about it, we do all like to reminisce. We do all like to think back and to reflect, and we will talk about those times, and we might tell those stories of that particular occasion time and time again. And it's because they make us feel good, and it's something that it brings joy. It perhaps brings comfort, whatever it is. But there's a reason we keep returning to that memory. So this is an opportunity, I think, as teachers to make that happen for some of our young people. Another thing, if we're thinking about buying things for people, and I mentioned at the beginning, financial pressures for many of our families, we know that Christmas is going to be a tough time. There's a lot of pressure on them to, have the perfect Christmas, to buy this, to have that, make sure this is going on. And actually, they don't really need to be doing those things, but they do feel that they have to show themselves as getting along and doing what everybody else is doing. You will also have some families who they know they just can't do that, and that's really hard because they want to give their children that magical Christmas, and it just isn't something that's an option for them. So, yes, I'm talking about families, but also I think it's important to consider the staff. They have families too. They are human beings. And I'm not just thinking here about support staff. We know that their pay is incredibly low for the expertise and responsibility that they have. But this could be staff at any levels, all sorts of things could be going on in somebody's lives that actually mean there are financial pressures. So, really, we need to shift. For me, we really need to shift this culture away from staff buying things for their own kind of financial welfare. And reframing the narrative, really thinking about how thoughtful and how impactful a free or a low cost activity can be. um, I think that's the starting point to shift in this notion of needing to buy something. And I came across a really nice idea. This is completely free, and it was called a kindness chain. And it was where you notice somebody has done something kind for you, you then go on and do something kind for someone else. So obviously, people do kind things all the time, but this is about really noticing and acknowledging that that's happened. And actually, you might think that something kind has happened. It will feel kind to you, and you then go and be kind to the next person. Don't necessarily know if you were the next person in the chain. That's kind of the beauty of it. It's just something we go and do. And gratitude journals are a big thing because there's a lot of research around being grateful and how that boosts our self-esteem. So if someone's been kind to us, we feel better about whatever it is that's going on, whatever it is they've done for us. And also, doing something positive for somebody else is also known to enhance mood. So for me, that's an absolute win-win for not buying things and actually doing something different. So I say that was called a kindness chain. Um, I mean, I've been a teacher for over 20 years. I have still got handmade Christmas cards, little things, little bookmarks that students made for me, all those years ago at the start of my career and various points in between. They're the things that matter. They're the things that people put time and effort into. It's a little bit of them really. It's their personality, and it's much more. Again, I use that word meaningful, but it's much more meaningful than something that's been bought off the shelf, isn't really tailored to me. Whereas a personal thing, it's inherent in its nature, it is personal. So, again, something that perhaps students can do in school, making something, doing something craft related that they can take home, that they can share with someone, or they can leave in school. And considering how you communicate that message to your families that this is Christmas, yes, but it's not all about how much you spend in terms of money, but it's about how much time you spend building connections and enjoying being with one another. um Shifting the emphasis slightly, for the next point, I started thinking about the environmental benefits of not buying things. And I know, it's really lovely, I think, to see in shops now lots of plastic free paper, alternatives to sellotape, people using much more sustainable materials, and even thinking about the types of gifts they're buying as well. And, if you're buying something for your class and it's 30 of something, it is likely to be something mass produced, something made of plastic, and something that's probably caused quite a lot of environmental, damage, pollution, whatever, in making it, and sadly is quite likely to end up in a landfill. So that those kind of cheap plastic trinkets, toys, even fidget toys. I know they do have a use, but if you're buying them for everybody, is it really necessary on many levels? You know, I'm absolutely thinking here about sustainability. If you are going to make something, if you do want to give your students something, could it be made of sustainable materials, and could it be something that they can all get involved with? I've seen some really nice um, advent calendars made of sort of recycled material. The ones that have the little drawers as well, so you can put different things inside. You can put a sweet in, or a little, I don't know, toffee penny, whatever it is. Again, not something massive, because for a student, it's the point is not the thing inside necessarily. It's the fact that it's their day. If they're number 6 on the register, if that's how you choose to do it, and they therefore open door number 6, it's they just look forward to it being their day, their special moment, and the thing that's inside is less important than actually being the chosen one on that particular day. So some really good alternatives, I think, that are much more sustainable, much more environmentally friendly than buying things. I did actually see a lovely idea as well. If you want to get really really local about things, if you're fortunate enough to have a school field, some lovely little designs where you can get some twigs, um, literally glue them together in a V shape, not big twigs, sort of think the size of a pencil. Glue them together in a V shape, put another one across part way down, and it actually looks like a little triangle reindeer face with some antlers. Um, then you can do what you like in terms of sticking on little eyes and nose, make a little Rudolph. Again, just lovely little things that bit different, and students will remember doing much more than that little gift that they don't necessarily like. And getting outside, we know that generally just getting outside is a massive way to support our well-being. It's shown time and again that fresh air, it helps to regulate, it helps to soothe, it helps to release endorphins, particularly if you go and run about and get a bit energetic about things. Get outside, go and spend that time with your class, and they can go and collect the sticks. They can go and find those little twigs. That can be their mission, no bigger than a pencil, um, and get them being creative. And I think, my last point before we break to hear the news is around, if we're talking about shifting culture, but shifting traditions and creating new ones, traditions that can last. So, if you are making a little twiggy reindeer, like I was just describing, perhaps that could be the thing that you do when you're in year 3. It doesn't need an art teacher, it doesn't need someone with any specialist expertise. It can just be the thing that you do when you're in year 3 at our school. And it will become something that the students start to look forward to doing in the same way that they perhaps know that a certain trip happens in year 5, or a certain visit happens in year 2. It's just something that becomes part of what we do at this school. And you know, yes, you've always got to be mindful of things like inclusion when you set up these new traditions. But I hope what you're seeing, what you're hearing from the ideas I've shared with you this evening are all things that can, they are very accessible. They are also things that can very easily be adapted if you do have students that need something a little bit different. And, for me, setting those traditions, setting those new ideas, it does give students something to look forward to. There's some interesting sort of anecdotes coming out about people saying, actually, it kind of builds a sense of community, but also continuity, because they know that by the time, if we're thinking primary school, by the time they get to year 6, they will have done, the movie afternoon in year 2, the Twiggy reindeers in year 3. They will have done the sustainable advent calendar in year 4. Whatever it is you decide to do, they will have gone through all of those things. So they get that continuity that comes with being in your community over a period of time. And again, something then for them to look back on, something that they will talk about in the future, and will give them a kind of double dose of well-being and supporting their mental health, because they will experience it at the time, hopefully enjoy it, and then have something to look back on in the future. As I say, there was quite a lot to my thinking when I started out with what seemed like quite a simple question. And I have got more points to make, but I will come back to those after we hear the news and also from our sponsors.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Parentkind are a national charity representing parent views and voice and championing parental participation in education and school life. By fostering strong school-parent partnerships, we can boost student attendance, improve behaviour and enhance academic performance. When parents actively participate, students thrive. Join the movement that's reshaping education for the better. Visit parentkind.org to learn more about reaping the rewards of working in partnership with parents.
Are you ready to enhance your assessments in a world where AI is transforming education? Join Toddle for an exclusive event, Designing Assessments with AI, a live session tailored just for UK educators. Explore practical strategies to keep your assessments both effective and fair as AI continues to reshape education. Hear from experts Darren Coxon and Dale Bassett, who'll guide you through designing authentic assessments and navigating AI's biggest challenges. It's happening on December the 2nd from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Don't miss out on this opportunity to discover how you can adapt your assessment strategies for the future of education. Register for free at toddleapp.com/UKAI and secure your spot now.
Hey educators, ready to kickstart 2025 with world-class inspiration? Then don't miss Bet UK, happening January 22nd to 24th in London. Get fired up in our high-energy arena hosted by Laura McInerney with an incredible lineup. Hear from racing driver and inclusion advocate Nicholas Hamilton and the poetic power duo Michael Rosen and Christian Foley. Plus, don't miss the legendary Stephen Fry discuss the human approach to AI. Explore hundreds of hours of unmissable content, the latest edtech, and free CPD opportunities to supercharge your skills. All for free, so why wait? Head to betshow.com and book your ticket now. Let's make 2025 your best year yet.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week features a report on the disadvantage gap in EYFS. According to new data, the gap is widening between the proportion of pupils eligible for means-tested free school meals achieving a good level of development when compared to their non-disadvantaged peers. The gap grew from 19.9% in 2022 to 23 to 20.5% last year. This reversed the progress logged last year according to Department for Education data published recently, although the data set only goes back to 2021 to 22 after changes were made to EYFS. The persistence of disadvantage gaps has become a source of consternation across the education sector. The EYFS data shows the gap is opening up even amongst the youngest school pupils. Girls continue to outperform boys, with this gap widening for the second year running, but the difference between autumn and summer-born children narrowed in the same time frame. Full analysis of the data and further information about the disadvantage gap at post-16 A-level can be found on the Schools Week website. The BBC covers reports that Australia will ban children aged under 16 from using social media after its Senate approved the world's strictest bans. The ban, which will not take effect for at least 12 months, could see tech companies fined the equivalent of £25.7 million if they don't comply. The Australian Prime Minister says the legislation is needed to protect young people from the harms of social media, something echoed by parents' groups. Critics, however, say questions over how the ban will work and the impact it may have on privacy and social connection have been unanswered. The Australian ban sets the highest age limit by any country and does not include exemptions for existing users or those with parental consent. The vote passed by 34 votes to 19, and full details can be found on the BBC News website. In a linked story, The Independent reports that just 18% of teachers think a phone ban would improve pupil behaviour, according to a recent poll. More than 2 in 5 teachers agree that mobile phones can be a teaching tool within schools. The survey of 1001 UK teachers also suggested that only 20% feel unauthorised mobile phone use disrupts their classroom frequently, whilst the most disruptive behaviours were listed as student chatter, fidgeting, and disrespect to other students. The YouGov poll also asked for teachers' top measure for improving behaviour, with a majority suggesting reducing class sizes and increasing support for pupils with behavioural challenges. Further details on this aspect of the issue of mobile technology can be found on the newspaper's website. Schools Week also reports on an aspect of the recruitment issue. A report on head teacher recruitment says schools in the Northwest are the most likely to be isolated and shut out from attracting the best head teachers. The Education Policy Institute found current and future head teachers tended to work only in connected communities and were unlikely to move for work outside of those areas. This creates isolated schools left without the best head teachers. The Northwest had the largest portion of isolated primary schools, whilst isolated secondary schools were concentrated in the West Midlands, East of England and the South East. London attracts more than half of the most effective primary school heads. The North East is also revealed as disproportionately successful in developing and attracting highly effective head teachers, despite having a smaller share of the overall teacher workforce. It attracts the highest proportion of the most effective secondary heads at 23% and also trains a fifth of them. The EPI ranked head teachers on whether they improved their school's test or exam results and then checked how schools with leaders at different points in the ranking fared in terms of other metrics such as pupil progress, teacher retention and school attendance. A researcher for the EPI said the research showed government needs to encourage more localised movement across schools, and Academy Trust should consider how they grow and deploy leaders in order to spread best practice. Finally, the BBC features a report on a 49-year-old exercise book. The book, discovered in a drawer of a school desk in Cornwall, has been returned to its former owner after it was discovered over half-term. The front cover of the book was shared on social media, and the owner was invited back to the school to be reunited with his property. The book was labelled Roman Studies and contained detailed sketches of an amphitheatre, Roman bathing systems, and several cities. The presentation of the book was exceptional, and the teacher who discovered it felt it deserved to be returned. When the owner was asked what he might do with the book, he replied, "I was thinking of putting it in a drawer." This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
Thank you to Jo for the news and also to our sponsors, as always. Interesting there that we're spending this evening talking about connection, Christmas presents, as I said earlier on, not with a TS, but ENCE at the end. And the article there in the news about the connection or lack of for some head teachers. So this is something, the idea of connection being present with other people is far more than just something that benefits our students. It's something that benefits all of us. So today, thinking about how we can create presence, how we can create and spend time with the students in our class over Christmas as an alternative to buying them a Christmas present. We looked at the power of shared experiences, looked at the environmental impact of buying sort of low value, often plasticky items, thought about the financial issues. So, what I want to do now is think particularly about the students themselves. So, first of all, picking up on the idea of encouraging student participation. Now, some of these things, they're not discrete points, they are all interlinked. So you will perhaps recognise some of the things and pick up on some themes that are all kind of interwoven with one another here. But I was thinking about class traditions as well before the break, and we know that participation, being involved in something, being part of a group, does give us that sense of community and that sense of connection. And it can also increase engagement. And that's engagement not just in the task in the here and now, the Christmas activity, but actually it can increase engagement in other things as well. If you feel part of something, you want to be involved, you're more likely to want to give your fair share of effort, if you like. You also build your teamwork skills. And if there's anything that has come from, post COVID, it is a lot of comments around the fact that students are struggling with social interaction. So perhaps this is an opportunity to build time for interaction, again, without the academic pressure, give them some opportunities to work in teams, and actually let them let them feel success. Let them do an activity where they're not going to be told even better if once they've handed it in. It actually is something that can have a finish point and it is literally closed. Book shut, over and done with, full stop. And I think for some of our students that might be quite an alien concept because we are always told, give them feedback, tell them how they can improve. And of course, I'm not saying everybody, but there are lots of occasions where students do feel that their teachers always expect more of them. And of course, yes, we should have high expectations of our students, but they also need to be acknowledged for when they have done a job, a task well. And again, think about us as adults. If we were constantly being told, you need to change this, next time try this, what it does is it creates a feeling of, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing well enough, I'm not achieving as highly as I should. We all know it feels good when somebody comes and acknowledges us as a member of staff for doing something, for completing an activity, for whatever it is that we've done that deserves that recognition. So for our students, giving them a chance to participate in something that has an end point and that they can see, that is a job well done. It may also be, if you're thinking about how you can build ways for student participation, you know, having time to get them doing something linked to their interest. Perhaps you've got students with an unusual talent or something that doesn't normally shine through in your sort of typical Monday to Friday lesson based timetable. I'm not necessarily saying go and do a complete talent show, but finding ways to incorporate their creativity, finding ways to allow them to express themselves. Um, I actually have come across one school who have a break the rules day, and it's done in a good spirit. It's obviously not break every single rule, but things like they can wear makeup for the day, they can wear their hoodie for the day, and it's just a bit of fun, and it creates that sense of community, sense of joy, and a shared doing something together. So let's see what you can come up with. And it's a bit of a challenge, a question, if you like, to you. What can you come up with that will get your students participating in a way that's different to normal? It could be Christmas themed, it could just be an end of term light-hearted activity, but it's all around going back to that idea of Christmas presents with a CE, building time together rather than giving them a physical item. And while we're talking about giving physical items, again, mentioned earlier on about handmade cards and the fact that I still have and remember um, the students that gave me those little things, little bookmarks, little drawings, they're meaningful. So, how can we create opportunities for students to give back to others? And this is, again, not about them buying something, but about them doing something. It could be that they make a little card, particularly your younger students may well quite like making a card to take home to an adult. Um, But your older students, what can they do to give back? Can they be involved in putting up the tree? If we link that back to the setting of new traditions, that could be something really to look forward to. When you're in year six, you get to help go and put the decorations on the tree in the main school hall. Doesn't sound a lot, but it's something that will be important to those young people. There's a lot of links there, to help them shift away from the concept of materialism and having to have stuff all the time. Lovely links to things like citizenship, people of the world, all of those kind of ideas. So, actually, whilst it may have a basis in Christmas and end of term doing something different, you can be clever, you can be creative yourself as a teacher and retain a connection, a link to the curriculum. It's also, if we're thinking about teaching them the joy of giving, it's a really nice opportunity to think about empathy. Mentioned already, the impact of COVID on social skills, on types of interaction. Actually, I would say that that's adults as well. And I say adults, it's not just parents, it's how we interact with each other as staff. So, thinking about how we can be more empathic, more considerate of others. And again, that idea of contributing to somebody else's happiness, supporting somebody else's well-being, has been shown to contribute to our own positive mental health as well. And there was a phrase in the World Happiness Report from 2023: "Doing good helps us feel good." And I think that really says it all. If we can support our students to do something good, to do something kind for somebody else, we actually give them an opportunity to support their own well-being at the same time. Something else that I wanted to pick up on, if we're giving people, a thing, not a tangible thing, but something else, is the gift of time. How often do we actually get time to spend uninterrupted um, time together with one another? And it can be truly transformative, actually, to just, again, take that academic pressure off. Just time to have fun. Just a period in a day where nothing else kind of really matters. It's just about the here and now. We spend so much time as adults and as students rushing about, whether it's, to get something off the photocopier because there's only 5 minutes left of break, or, students that, they're getting their tea in the car because at 5 o'clock they've got to be at their swimming lesson. We rush, 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 rush. And it's really nice to actually have the gift of time, to slow down, to press pause, and just to feel that kind of pressure go away, to feel that time madness, if you like, not be there. And I think, I'm going to come on to being inclusive in a minute, but I think that's something that's really valuable, particularly for our students with SEN. So if you've got this time, you've set aside a period in your day where there's going to be uninterrupted, doing something different, joyful time together, connection making experiences. There's been lots of examples in the show already, which I've shared with you, but a few more. Um, Little games like charades, um, noughts and crosses. It's all things that are simple. The little squares game, if you come across that, putting dots, and then you have two or three people. They join the dots where they make a square. They put their initial in the square. There's just little things you can make those things Christmasified, if you like. Plenty of little downloads you can find online, but it's just allowing people to have that kind of human connection again. They're not on their phones, they're not on devices, they're not watching a screen. Um, they are just spending time together. And I did actually, speaking of screens, I saw something the other day that said we wake up and a lot of people switch on the telly, it's a big screen. They go to work and they stare at a laptop, it's a screen. In the gap, at some point, they will go on their phone, it's a screen. And you go home, and guess what? You put the telly on again, or you go on your phone, yet more screens. So it's about how we can actually have time away from our screen as much as anything else. And the thing for me that shines through is actually, again, getting involved as a teacher and showing that you are a human being as well. I think there is no better way to connect with our students than to, when it's appropriate, to do things at their level. And the thing I wanted to sort of finish off with is, all of these activities are designed to be inclusive. There are lots of things that you can do to adapt them, smaller groups, perhaps different set up for a particular student, preparing them in advance of what is going to happen. But also, inclusion is not just about SEN, it can also be acknowledging that not every student will celebrate Christmas. We have a wonderful, diverse cultural background, religious backgrounds that make up our school communities. And for some of those children, they perhaps have a different emphasis, they have a different set of celebrations. But ensuring that they can still join in, they can still get some benefit. And focusing, if you have got some questions around it being a Christmas themed activity, having perhaps some alternatives if you need them, and focusing on universal values, things like kindness, gratitude, and joy that I've mentioned a few times during the show. And actually, how can you incorporate some of the multicultural experiences that your class can bring? Perhaps there could be things that are led by them. Perhaps you could explore global traditions, winter traditions from another country. What do they do in that particular pupil's country of origin, for example? There's some really interesting, quite fun activities about what is Santa called in different languages. It's those sort of things that students really can enjoy doing and find sort of quite interesting, and again, something that they may well remember how to say the name of Santa Claus in a completely different language. It's not really going to serve them much use, but it's something that they've enjoyed taking part in. um, I would say, if you are doing lots of these activities, make sure you plan ahead, make sure students know what to expect, and do consider your environment, because sensory needs are something that, again, lots of students are struggling with, and they will need to know what's happening, what to expect, but also when it will change back. I think that's something we quite often forget or miss out. So if you are, for example, making those twiggy reindeer that I described earlier on, if you're putting them on a display in your classroom, being clear to the students that when you come back in January, they will not be there, or on the first day back, we will be taking them down. Whatever it is that's going to work for you, just being clear when it will change back to normal. And I say that in inverted commas. Normal is a funny word, but just so that the students know, and don't come back in January. If you're going to take them down when they walk out the door at the end of term, some students might want to take them with them, others might not want to. But either way, there will be those who need to know, because they won't work it out for themselves. They won't realise, or they won't even process the fact that when you go back in January, Christmas won't still be in my classroom. So just giving them that certainty, that reassurance, so they know what to expect when they come back in January. Um, okay, we have a couple of people listening live, which is lovely this evening. I would always encourage you to text in. If you are someone who does buy gifts for your class, I'd love to know your thoughts on why you do that, what it is that has sort of influenced that decision. If you don't, again, what are your reasons there? And if you've changed your mind, what is it that's made you think differently? So we're going to hear from our sponsors one more time, and then a little bit of a conclusion from me to finish off the show.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Parentkind are a national charity representing parent views and voice and championing parental participation in education and school life. By fostering strong school-parent partnerships, we can boost student attendance, improve behaviour, and enhance academic performance. When parents actively participate, students thrive. Join the movement that's reshaping education for the better. Visit parentkind.org to learn more about reaping the rewards of working in partnership with parents.
Are you ready to enhance your assessments in a world where AI is transforming education? Join Toddle for an exclusive event, Designing Assessments with AI, a live session tailored just for UK educators. Explore practical strategies to keep your assessments both effective and fair as AI continues to reshape education. Hear from experts Darren Coxon and Dale Bassett, who'll guide you through designing authentic assessments and navigating AI's biggest challenges. It's happening on December the 2nd from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Don't miss out on this opportunity to discover how you can adapt your assessment strategies for the future of education. Register for free at toddleapp.com/UKAI and secure your spot now.
Hey educators, ready to kickstart 2025 with world-class inspiration? Then don't miss Bet UK, happening January 22nd to 24th in London. Get fired up in our high-energy arena hosted by Laura McInerney, with an incredible lineup. Hear from racing driver and inclusion advocate Nicholas Hamilton and the poetic power duo Michael Rosen and Christian Foley. Plus, don't miss the legendary Stephen Fry discuss the human approach to AI. Explore hundreds of hours of unmissable content, the latest edtech, and free CPD opportunities to supercharge your skills. All for free, so why wait? Head to betshow.com and book your ticket now. Let's make 2025 your best year yet.
Thank you once again to our sponsors there for supporting Teachers Talk Radio. It's much appreciated. I have been talking today about Christmas presents, not the type that you buy, but presents as in being present with someone, spending time with them, and having meaningful connections and building shared positive experiences, particularly for our students, so that they have something to look back on and remember. I have been looking today at things like the gift of time, spending time with someone in the here and now, not on a screen, doing something together, um, which could be all sorts of things. I've shared all sorts of examples today, from building Twiggy reindeer. You can scroll back through if you missed that bit. Twiggy reindeer, and how to make them, to things like a kindness chain, to sing alongs, a Christmas sort of movie afternoon with your class, perhaps something like decorating a display for Christmas or making something together that the students can take home. Whatever it is, spending time being present in that way rather than buying a present that is a thing, will be so much more powerful, so much more meaningful for them. And there's lots of things going on. I think talked about the shift away from materialism actually brings in an opportunity to discuss things like the environment and sustainability. Again, some examples I shared this evening around whether we should have Christmas trees. Um, that's not me being a Scrooge. That's thinking about the um, environmental impact of growing trees, to cut them down, what we do with them afterwards. I'm not saying don't have a Christmas tree. I think they're lovely, and I have one in my house, a real one. But what can we do to broaden our students' experiences, build those connections with them, give them a point in time, a reference point where they can say that relationship really mattered, or that's where I felt secure in that environment. And for some of our young people, we know that going home over Christmas is going to be a challenging time. And even for those that are going to have a lovely time, a magical experience, really happy time with their family, why shouldn't they have that same experience in school? Why shouldn't we give them something that in years to come they can look back and go, I really enjoyed being in, year 4 because we made those Twiggy reindeer, or year 6 because I was the one that got to put the lights on the tree in the school hall. It's things like that that matter, things like that that we remember. Um, there's the phrase, isn't there, about it's not what people say to us per se, but it's how they make us feel. So if we can give our students experience that makes them feel wanted, feel welcomed, and feel part of something, I think, as a teacher, there's no better thing we can do. If we're thinking about giving them something, there's nothing more that is more important than actually making them feel part of something and feeling that they belong. Um, I've also touched a little bit on the staff as well, making them part of these experiences, building in opportunities to show that human side, to have a bit of fun, be creative, and just join in. It doesn't actually matter. And actually, those students probably think it's great. If Mr. or Mrs. So and so made a bit of a fool of themselves trying to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and forgot the lyrics, again, that's a positive shared memory, and that goes a long way to supporting well-being. So I shall leave you with the thought of, how you can create some Christmas presents, CE at the end, not TS. How can you create some Christmas presents in your classroom that are going to give those students and you lasting positive memories and things that they will look back on, remember fondly, and think that was a really great time. Um, Thank you very much for listening. We are getting very close to Christmas, so I hope you do have a lovely Christmas break when we get there. Also, Happy New Year for 2025 if you um, are listening nearer to the changeover, or even if you're not, just Happy New Year anyway from me and everybody at Teachers Talk Radio. Thank you very much for listening. Do take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.